I thought when I was in Florida, I was kind of struck by how racially segregated everything seemed.
What do you mean by that?
Well, like the ethnicities seem to live so apart. In Ontario and in Ottawa, they don't. They're very intermingled. Like the school I went to was majority Muslim, and very diverse. And so going to a place like Florida where there was like all these white people was really weird. And
Well, you gotta
Majority
take into
Muslim, like what
consideration.
percentage?
um, so about half the graduating class that wasn't the class I was in, but the other graduating grade 8 class were Muslim women wearing hijabs.
Hmm.
There was only one white girl in the entire class.
Hijabs, how do you know they weren't just white girls appropriating Indian culture like you? No, I'm joking.
um, yeah. No, because the hijab is just you can see the skin. Um, but yeah, I was struck by that when I visited Florida.
Well, you gotta take into consideration that Florida is also a southern state. You would find a lot of southern whites over there, but there's also a lot of Hispanics here in Florida as well,
Mm.
since we're Puerto Rico and that's literally next door. But yeah,
Yeah, we got a lot of Mexicans where I live as well.
Mm.
it just depends on the area you live in. If yeah.
To be fair, the area I was visiting was not a very, it was kind of a well-off community. It was Panama City Beach.
Hmm. Yeah, hey, sometimes I go to the beach area, but that's only to fish. But that's it. Maybe a few times a month. Depends.
Yeah.
So, what you? Oh, okay. You're drawing the conundrum.
Conundrum.
Yep.
Yep. That's what I'm doing right now. He wanted me to animate a picture for him. Yes, as you can see, still in the process of that.
It's coming along rather well.
Well, thank you. I don't know if you knew, Lapis, but originally today I was supposed to be interviewing Voltaire, but
Yeah, well, that's obviously off the table. Well,
I wouldn't say that necessarily. Just as soon as he freaking, I don't know, maybe he's taking a nap. It might just be off the table.
mm,
I mean, if it gets so late.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, it's an interesting idea that you still want to talk to Voltaire.
yeah, I still want to interview to clarify a whole lot of his positions because Humane Mind said on the Cancer Podcast Tuesday that he thought that Voltaire was saying it was clumsy wording that he admits for what Voltaire was saying, but he thinks that his ultimate position is that he just wants to uh, take away voting rights of all people who do not own a specific piece of property. You
Mm.
could probably
Yeah,
disagree with
well,
that, and I
he
probably
directly said to me at least on the stream that he was against voting rights and women in office. Aside from his kind of aristocratic, um, very, very limited democracy that he advocates.
I think that's I'm not so sure, but I would almost suspect that something might be lost in translation still, but we'll never know for sure until I actually get to freaking interview him.
In which case, you can only do so much if he doesn't want to appear.
Yep.
If he doesn't want to be interviewed by you, well, we can just stick with the good old-fashioned he's a sexist.
Okay. Well, you do that, but I'm not. I'm gonna refrain until I knew for certain.
Mm. Well, I mean, like, if we don't have him as a sexist, and from comments that he said to me on the off-air stream, I thought it was pretty clear. There's still the whole anti-Semitism thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. Like, if I was to ask him about that, I think we would be getting into New World Order conspiracy theory type territory. Which that always
Illuminati
freaking
bullshit.
yeah, which that always freaking depresses me. Yeah, y'all
Yeah.
better watch out. Brandon is an Illuminati member himself. I saw him right over at Bohemian Grove just a few months ago, actually.
Now the funny thing is, when I was okay, there's a certain part of my life where I kind of believed in that stuff.
You mean like anti-Semitic conspiracy theories?
No, not that. I'm talking about like the New World Order and that shit.
Oh, you were a InfoWars guy.
I used to be, yes. That was a long time ago.
Mm. Well, it's okay. Everyone has cringy ideologies that they were in their past. I used to be a Marxist-Leninist.
Oh no.
Explain the nuances between your current socialist beliefs and Marxist Leninism,
Okay,
if you
so
may please, or you don't have to.
socialism is about economic democracy. It's about working people, the people actually working in the factory or the job or the coffee shop, owning the enterprise which they're employed at. Whereas Marxist-Leninism believes that a party dictatorship needs to violently seize power and then have the state take ownership on behalf of the working class and a dictatorial party rule on behalf of the working class.
So it sounds kind of like state socialism,
Yeah.
essentially, or state communism.
Yeah, because Marxist-Leninism, the eventual goal was communism, but like the ideology is like so completely different. Like, how can you go from a extremely state-centric, the state controls everything society, to a stateless, classless, moneyless one? It doesn't really make any sense. And it was through, doing more reading and more education and just kind of broadening my perspective and actually talking to people who had lived under Marxist-Leninist countries that I shifted my political beliefs.
Okay. Is Bad Mouse Productions a Marxist-Leninist or something?
He used to be an anarcho-communist, but now he's starting to shift to the authoritarian left and doing like weird things where he like apologizes for Assad and Putin. I'm like, come on, Putin is not a leftist. No matter like how you scratch it, Putin is not a leftist and Putin should not be apologized for. Putin is just a dictator.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know his economic position, so I don't know. I guess I'd just give you the benefit of the doubt for that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what kind of ticked me off on the Lapis verse or on your debate against S-Man on capitalism?
What?
Was that Owen in the Peanut Gallery was saying that Obama was a right-winger.
Well, it depends on how you judge it. Like, Obama would not be right-wing by American standards, but you have to understand that like other countries in the first world are much more left-wing than America. So
certainly, but the thing is, he was anything but an economic libertarian, and the way that I judge left versus right politics, especially when it comes to economics, is that the more for economic freedom you are, the more right-leaning you are. The more for economic control you are, the more left-leaning you are. And with Obama's case, he was for pushing more regulations on coal and oil, and he was for raising the minimum wage, which he successfully did that also. What was some other things?
More as well.
Yeah. That's another thing. If you are for less government control in the economy and for lower taxes, the more right-leaning you are. The higher taxes you are for and the more government control into economics you are, the more left-leaning you are.
it's just a matter of degree, right? Like, I don't necessarily agree with your definition of left versus right wing, but even working with this definition, like Canada, Europe, all England, we all have much more economic regulation and much more of a state role in the economy than the United States. And so when Obama introduces kind of a, brings America closer in step with all the other countries in the first world, it's still kind of reforms that we accomplished like 40, 50 years ago. So it's difficult to not see it as kind of conservative, like maybe much more moderate conservative, like even centrist, but still not like really, really left wing. But in the American context, Obama was very much a left winger.
Right. The thing about the definition of conservatism, though, is that, and I'm going to quote Ted Cruz on this, is that it's relative, I think is the word that he used. And I can kind of sympathize with that. I mean, it's relative, it's subjective, whatever word you want to use. Because if you were like in America and you were for economic freedom, you would be essentially a conservative in the economic sense, at least. But if, say, you live in Norway or Sweden and you are pretty left on economics, then you would be a conservative by that standard. And if I was to move to there myself, there's no way that I could like legitimately.
So you'd be outside of the political spectrum. Like no one would be considering the views you advocate.
What do you mean I would be outside of the political spectrum?
I mean that in the parties that were on the political spectrum in Sweden that you could vote for, you wouldn't find a representative. I mean, you'd find ones that were closer to your perspective, like there are more kind of, more neoliberal policies, parties in Sweden. Like there are people that would, agree with your economic right-wing beliefs, but in general, the degree of which you are probably economically right-wing would not really find much of an audience in Sweden.
So I guess it's a question of at which point, at what degree of economic control would make you start becoming a left-winger or a economic centrist, or whatever, and at what degree does it turn you into a person on the right on economics?
Well, yeah.
But as it stands with at this point of what Obama's current stances are, yeah, he's anything. He's anything but an economic libertarian. So I do not consider him right wing for that.
But like Donald Trump isn't really libertarian. Like I
don't think anyone ever claimed him to be libertarian.
But like he wouldn't necessarily be, by your metric, economically right wing either, considering all the like. Sure, he's cut regulation and taxes.
Not really.
But he's also like virulently against trade deals.
Yeah.
He's also like he likes starting trade wars with countries that he doesn't like.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing that makes him more left leaning on economics. There's also the I do not know of how much he pushed for eminent domain ever since he got inaugurated into office, but that was always something that was floated about with his campaign. He was for eminent domain, the seizing of private property for government projects and so on and so forth.
Well, that's happening with some people who voted for the wall.
Okay, well in that case, yeah, I kind of that would be a left-leaning position. But I think that only just pushes him more to the left, but doesn't push him all the way into the left.
Well, yeah, and I think this does seem like an interesting conversation I can have to you, because like leftists have our own way of defining economics. I know that libertarians, you're espousing the kind of a libertarian perspective on economic right versus left wing.
Yes.
JJ, where would you stand on like how do you judge a whether someone is economically on the right or the left?
I think I have to agree with Zach on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to be condescending with JJ, but I think he is just learning as he goes along. And to me, it's kind of the same way with me. I'm learning. I mean, I've always been kind of engaged with politics ever since I was younger, but I never really had such a sharp view on it, in all honesty. I lived more of in an echo chamber in my younger days, and it's not till when I got more and more exposed to the internet and to YouTube and whatnot that I, excuse me, became more libertarian and my philosophy became more refined, I guess you could say.
And I'm not the most political person in the world either. I only recently got into this maybe about a year ago.
Mm.
And speaking of left versus right economics, one time when I interviewed Cult of Ham at one point, and he said at one point that both the establishment right and left, like the establishment GOP and this establishment Democrats, that they're both far right when it comes to economics. And that just rose a red flag in my head. And I was like, wait, what? Are you saying that the Democrats are for deregulating conventional energies, are for lowering taxes, are for allowing people to have the right to discriminate and deny service as however they please, that they're against the minimum wage just like the Republicans? It just
Well, I
really
wouldn't say that the majority of Republicans are against the minimum wage. Maybe
not
against
against it, but they're
raising it.
against raising. Yeah, I mean, not a whole lot of people are vehemently outspoken against the minimum wage. I wouldn't even say that it is a prime issue for me. I mean, yes, my preferred position is to get rid of it entirely because I'm for private property rights, and I think that the wage that you choose for your employee is something that falls under private property rights. But in the ultimatum of things, is that the first go-to issue that I would focus on if I was to say run for president or some other position? Probably not, but you know, I still hold that position by principle at least.
Yeah. Like once again, you have to go on context. I'd say that Cult of Ham may be judging economic right and economic left very differently than you do. Some people see economic right as kind of a belief system which is like the way the political compass chart defines it is the far right of economics is like neoliberalism, where, you know, the government funds corporations, but at the same time thinks that areas which benefit the corporations, that's where freedom matters. Areas that don't benefit the corporations, that's where government needs to step in. That's how that political compass defines economic right versus left. And the economic far left would be like kind of like Marxism, like communism.
Yeah. Anything you got to add, JJ?
Not really. I'm not the most political person in the world.
I'm not particularly the smartest, nor even the most well-read, but yeah, I mean,
I don't think there really is much to add from my perspective.
in my opinion, I think that the best that you could call like neoliberalism, which sounds like a crony corporatism to me, I think that the best that you could probably define that is like economic centrism, maybe just a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left, depending on the variant of that said corporatism. But to me, that doesn't make you like to the equivalent of, say, Milton Friedman, for example. If you are for big government subsidies into businesses, bank bailouts, and so forth.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as I know, I don't know every little detail about Milton Friedman, but I'm pretty sure that he wouldn't be the type of guy that would be for, yes, in 2008 we should have bailed out the banks like we did, and you know.
Yeah, although He did support Pinochet.
Yeah, I don't know the full details of that. He supported. What were you saying? Like he was all up. He was hoorahing his killing of people and so forth.
Well, his specific support was that he believed that economic freedom was tied to political freedom, as he defined these terms, and that by getting Pinochet to deregulate the economy, eventually Chile would move on the path towards democracy. Kind of an interesting hypothesis, and he gave Pinochet lots of economic advice and such.
I guess I wouldn't deny that there is at some point that he was approving of Pinochet. In fact, I heard Frederick Voltaire say that the dictator that he would be most approving of, that doesn't mean that he is like, to me, that doesn't mean that Voltaire is like full on, oh yeah, Pinochet was an angel, but the only dictator that he would say was the best would be Pinochet, just because he, amongst dictators, was the one dictator to most support free market economics. Like I said, I don't know the full extent of Pinochet and Milton Friedman, but I kind of give the benefit of the doubt that he might have ultimately been for economic freedom and free markets, while at the same time being for human rights abuses, like systematically taking people's lives.
Yeah, which obviously, as a libertarian, you don't support. I hope.
Right. No. Let people keep their own political opinions, and if I say throw a commie out a copter, it's as a joke. Just the same with us, man.
Yeah.
But it's no, I literally do not believe in such a thing.
Yeah.
I never thought my stream would get so political.
My thoughts are, when it comes to yeah, although that does seem to be a kind of controversial thing, like where you seem to be, that seems to be a split between you and Voltaire, because you seem to be against that sort of use of force, while Voltaire has indicated that he is very much against democracy.
Yeah,
against
that
free
I'm gonna
speech.
have to add that as the questions to ask about him.
Yeah, because he said democracy is a soft form of communism on the stream.
That was fucking stupid.
Yeah, I don't get that. I mean, I guess I kind of understand that democracy could go in any direction. I mean, you give people the full, unadulterated majoritarian power to vote and say, yeah, whatever the majority decides goes. The majority could decide, hey, we are going to advance this democracy to become a republic where there are multiple branches of government that keep each other in check. Or we could set ourselves up, we could vote for somebody to be a king, and whoever the offspring of that king is, they will be kings and queens as well.
Yeah.
Or they could vote for communism in a majoritarian democracy. But I think that was like a too plain and vague of a statement for it to be just left on its own. Like the same thing for it's okay to hate LGBT people. Because my opinion is that if you want to talk about scale of acts that you could commit, my opinion is that it's more okay to hate a person than it is to kill a person. And legally, it is okay. And by that, I mean, it obviously should be allowed. I mean, you cannot read into people's emotions.
Oh, yeah, sure. Absolute freedom of
thought.
But
morally, I say just blanketly, no, it's not okay to hate. Not just because I'm a Christian, by the way, and Jesus teaches everybody to love their neighbor and even their enemy and so forth, but also because it's a rotting, to me, it seems like it's an emotion that would rot and corrupt your thoughts and emotions to make you, you know, a negative person, a grumpy person, a sour person, and just a person that nobody wants to be around in general. So on the secularist point of view, that's my case against hating your fellow man.
Yeah. Well, it does make sense. I have to admit, like, sometimes I struggle with, like, not hating people. Like, I have a hard time, like, not hating fascists because they want to kill me. And, like, I know, like, I shouldn't hate them, like, because, you know, it is kind of wrong to, like, to even, like, the worst kind of people on the political spectrum, and that's my opinion of fascists, to just view them as non-human, because then you're kind of like buying into their logic in a weird way. But at the same time, like I do, like, it is a struggle because I see them like killing my people like me, and I see all the terrorism that happens like all across the United States and even in Canada. Like there is this alt-right guy who shot up a mosque in Montreal and killed, like, I think it was like 17 people. And like, yeah, when you have that sort of thing happening all the time around your country, and you have basically this movement that is so scared of interracial marriage that it wants to commit a genocide of millions of people, like, it's hard for me to sympathize.
Yeah.
Right? It's hard for me to not be like, okay.
I think there is a bit of a nuanced difference between sympathizing and refraining from hating somebody, but you know.
Yeah. I don't sympathize with Nazis, but I think, like, if, like, because it's true that some, like, it is possible to deconvert them from their hateful ways. Like, it has happened before, and, you know, those Nazis have gone on to be committed, you know, anti-racists, fighting against, you know, that sort of tendency. But at the same time, like, I don't know. It's a
There's
hard
one
question.
anecdotal. There's one anecdotal story that I heard of. I cannot remember the name of the guy, but talking about a skinhead who had all sorts of Nazi-esque tattoos across his head, and so it was hard to get a job. And he eventually met this one black gal. I guess he was infatuated, or black guy. I think I accidentally said that. Black girl is actually a girl that he was infatuated by, and so he revoked his own former political beliefs in order to, you know, attract this black woman. I actually made a video responding to somebody when it comes to interracial marriage who was trying to make a case stupidly against interracial marriage.
That's so weird. Like it's still kind of like unbelievable to me.
Guess who that person was, by the way?
Was it Voltaire?
No. I don't think Voltaire has made any video about interracial marriage. In fact, I have yet to hear him say anything against interracial marriage because he knows, at least I think he knows, that I'm into black women, and he isn't all like, oh, you betray your own race, and so on and so forth. But no, the person that I was responding to on interracial marriage was Muhammad Ali.
Oh, well, yeah. Muhammad Ali was in the Nation of Islam for like much of his life, which was, you know, quite a nasty group.
Mm-hmm.